Hey there, welcome to day 159, and we are finishing John chapter 18 today. So here we see that Peter denies Jesus again, and the rooster crows, and John does not document Peter's reaction to this, although we see that in the other Gospels that he is distraught when he realizes what he's done. And I think when we see the fact that John was very likely the other disciple with Peter during this time, we realize, this was a big deal. This was something that as humans, we, if in the same situation, would likely be in that same spot, very terrified of what was coming. Peter very likely saw the fact that Jesus had just taken a really hard slap from the people before, and that this was going to get a lot messier than they thought. We have to think that there were several times prior to this that Jesus had been questioned by the authorities, and that he had gotten himself out of it. And in this case, Peter, I think, is realizing that's not going to happen this time. So Jesus is brought before Pilate, which was the Roman ruler at the time. And so one thing that's interesting here is it says the Jewish people brought Jesus to Pilate, but did not enter the house so as not to defile themselves. This has to do with the fact that Jewish people did not recognize the Romans as someone of cleanliness, and so in their own religious laws, they wouldn't enter a Roman's house for fear of defiling themselves, and right before Passover. And of course, we see the irony here in that they're willing to basically put a man to death who's innocent, but they won't break their own religious laws as well. And we know from this previous scripture that the Jewish people were already breaking some of their own laws by trying Jesus in an improper manner. And here we see them not wanting to break one of their laws to kind of save themselves, but they're willing for Jesus to be put to death. And that's why they brought them to the Romans, because in their law, they can't execute somebody, and the Romans did not allow it. Now, there were stonings and things like that, but we know here that the Jewish people were seeking something much more harsh, and the Romans were the ones who instituted crucifixions. And so Pilate asked Jesus 2 different times, because in other Gospels we know that Jesus also goes to Herod at some point, because Pilate tries to put it on someone else to make the decision. And Pilate asked him, who are you? And Jesus, of course, responds with the question, of who do you think I am? And Pilate's asking him if he's a king, because we're looking at the idea Pilate has to decide, is this somebody who's threatening the Roman government? And of course, Jesus responds in his own way, affirming that he's a king, but he says, my kingdom is not of this world. And so Pilate, probably feeling like, okay, he's probably not from around here, far enough away, it's not going to affect the Romans, we're good. And so Pilate, sensing the fact that Jesus was innocent, not like the revolutionaries he's seen before, he goes back to the Jewish people and says, I don't see anything wrong. I don't see a guilt that, deserves this execution. And he says, but, he's trying to please the people, because Pilate actually was known historically as a pretty ruthless guy who I think the Jewish people thought, we'll take him to him. If we can give him a chance to execute someone, he probably will. But he comes back to the Jewish leaders and says, I don't see any guilt in him, but it's Passover, and I released a prisoner before on Passover. It's just, it's tradition to do so. And so he says, do you want me to release the King of the Jews? And they say, no, give us Barabbas. And so here we see the final rejection of the Jewish leaders and the rejection of Jesus that will ultimately send him to the cross, which means he will become our sacrifice and our eternal Passover lamb. So as we continue reading toward the crucifixion and the resurrection, just remember and take into account, what it meant for Jesus to say, my kingdom's not of this world, and the fact that he said, I have come for a purpose. And so Jesus knows and knew his purpose and was ready to be that sacrificial lamb for us. So reflect on that today and have a great one.